Abraham Lincoln entered his second term at the culmination of the Civil War, an event that tore the seams of the Union itself. As he took the oath in front of a Capitol dome still in the midst of construction, he faced an audience of expectantly waiting answers to the many crucial questions facing the nation. How would the Union address the conquered South? How would the deep gashes that had been cut in the body of the nation be mended? Would they approach these changes with a forgiving or punishing policy? Lincoln himself, in addition to many critics, considers his second inaugural address to be the best of his rhetorical pieces. In a time in which the unity of the nation was crucial and uncertain, Lincoln condemned slavery while describing the war as God's punishment to the nation as an entity for its evils, rather than the fault of any part. By doing this, he avoided any promotion of already stark sectional feelings and promoted a call for healing and reconciliation. While firm and guided by clear direction, the ultimate tone of the speech is conciliatory, providing both the necessary leadership and the push for forgiveness imperative to the success of the nation. When commenting on Lincoln's second inaugural address, Bill Clinton said, "He has a wonderful way of giving his adversaries their due, seeing their point of view, treating them with respect, which was enormously effective in bringing people together and finding a way to move forward after conflict. It is a tremendous example of leadership."
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Requesting that Congress declare war against the aggressor Empire of Japan after the attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, Roosevelt's speech assumed a tone of urgency and honesty appropriate to the gravity of the circumstances. Frank and forthright, he was clear about the unexpectedness of the attack, as well as the gravity of the threat to national security and the number of American fatalities. By combining this sense of atrocious violation of national security with a firm declaration of American intentions to retaliate, he dissolved the previously heated debate between interventionists and isolationists, uniting them in the cause against World War II.
No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
Kennedy addressed the nation under conditions similar to those faced by Roosevelt, already uncertain international relations escalated by imminent threat to national security. Except this time, Kennedy faced the threat of nuclear devastation. Just as Lincoln had, Kennedy used the occasion of his address to outline the chosen policy for dealing with the presence of medium-range missiles in Cuba.
To regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States.
Preparing speeches for both the bombing of missiles or blockading of Cuba, he ultimately chose the more passive approach, using the less belligerent term quarantine as part of his holistic attempt to avert nuclear war.
A strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated.
By announcing the presence of missiles in Cuba, declaring them an unacceptable threat to the U.S., and justifying that stance not only with his previous policy, but other treaties and legislation. This policy of caution and restraint, as well as honesty towards the nation, proved later to hold even more wisdom than one originally thought, as the actual potential for nuclear aggressions from Soviets was realized.
Not the victory of right, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world. God willing, that goal will be
Johnson entered the presidency in the midst of chaos, confusion, and loss. The assassination of Kennedy filled his inauguration with an air of suspicion and illegitimacy. Johnson, aware of these difficulties and the challenge of leading the nation shaken by the loss of the glamorous Kennedy, used this notably masterful speech to build a solid confidence in the American people through his leadership. Using Kennedy's staff and input from the various levels of government, he used the former president's name throughout as a source of power and legitimacy. It set the tone for the measured steadiness of his term and the precedent of Kennedy's memory as the energetic force behind his domestic legislation.
It was 5 days after Dallas. The shock of the Kennedy assassination was still fresh when Lyndon Johnson came before the country and Congress for the first time. It seemed the Texan was everything JFK wasn't: ungainly, unpolished, sometimes vulgar. But he used the glow from the murdered president to propel his own agenda in a masterful speech.
On the 20th day of January in 1961, John F. Kennedy told his countrymen that our national work would not be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet.
The attacks of September 11th left a nation accustomed to unquestionable sense of security shaken and vulnerable. Every system upon which they relied had been halted. Americans had been killed in their own country. In the days immediately after the attacks, Bush assumed heated and angry rhetoric, ultimately ineffective in assuaging fears. However, as he addressed Congress, he shed this facade, declaring a forceful and eloquent address that calmed the nation in the face of threat and solidified its resolve. Like his predecessors, Bush alternated between driving leadership and an explanation of the events at hand, uniting a sense of honesty and trust in the people he addressed. While it contained no memorable, oft-quoted line, it fulfilled the purpose in calming the nation in the face of crisis.